Let's say you had $70 billion to upgrade your national air force. What would you do? If you're Canada, you might take 2 decades, flip-flop between jet fighters, start international arguments, cancel contracts, revive them, and in the end up paying more than originally planned. This is the story of Canada's jet fighter procurement nightmare, a 20-year saga that turned military modernization into a political minefield. It's a story of indecision, international pressure, and bureaucratic delay that left one of the world's wealthiest countries flying jets older than the internet. And yet somehow, it's still not over. Let's start with the basics. As of 2024, the Royal Canadian Air Force, or RCAF, relies heavily on CF-18 Hornets, an aircraft that first flew in the late 1970s. These jets were initially delivered to Canada in 1982. They're now over 40 years old. For context, that's like sending a Nokia flip phone to do a modern iPhone's job on the digital battlefield. In military terms, these aircraft are nearing the end of their service lives. The jets require intense maintenance, and spare parts are becoming increasingly scarce. Pilots report fatigue both in the planes and in themselves, as mission reliability declines and downtime increases. Despite upgrades over the years, these aircraft are simply no match for emerging threats like fifth-generation fighters, stealth drones, and hypersonic missile systems. Back in 1997, Canada signed on as a Level 3 partner in the development of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, also known as the F-35 Lightning II, made by Lockheed Martin. That early involvement gave Canadian aerospace companies access to supply contracts and gave the government a front-row seat at one of the most ambitious jet fighter programs in history. But here's where it gets weird. Despite being part of the program for years and investing over 500 million Canadian dollars into it, the government refused to commit to actually buying the aircraft for more than a decade. In 2010, Canada finally announced it would purchase 65 F-35s. The cost? About $9 billion. But within 2 years, that plan unraveled. A 2012 Auditor General report accused the government of lowballing costs, ignoring risks, and failing to follow proper procurement procedures. Suddenly, the program went from modernization to national scandal. Public outrage soared. Political leaders scrambled. The deal was suspended. The F-35 became a dirty word in Canadian politics. By 2015, Canada had a new government, and the F-35 was out of favor again. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau famously campaigned on a promise to cancel the F-35 purchase entirely, saying, quote, "We know that the F-35 doesn't work and is far from working." Justin Trudeau, 2015 federal campaign. Instead, Canada announced a new open competition to replace the aging CF-18 fleet. This would include options from Boeing, Saab, and Airbus. In the meantime, the Air Force still needed flyable jets. So in 2017, Canada announced it would buy 18 used Australian F-18s at a cost of 90 million Canadian dollars, plus parts and upgrades. Critics called it a band-aid on a bullet wound. By the time the competition launched in 2020, most experts agreed Canada had already wasted nearly 15 years just deciding how to decide. In a stunning twist, after all the drama, backtracking, and political promises, the Canadian government circled all the way back. In January 2023, Canada officially selected the F-35A as its next-generation fighter, committing to purchase 88 jets at an estimated program cost of 19 billion Canadian dollars. Yes, that's the same aircraft that Canada had once promised to cancel. The new plan aims to begin deliveries in 2026 and reach full operational capacity by 2032. That means Canada will be flying CF-18s for at least 50 years by the time the transition is complete. Let that sink in. The estimated $19 billion price tag doesn't tell the whole story, because the real cost is time and strategic credibility. Since 1997, Canada has spent over 600 million Canadian dollars participating in the F-35 program, mostly on industrial benefits and development fees, without locking in a final purchase. It also spent 3 billion Canadian dollars modernizing its CF-18s just to keep them airworthy until 2032. That's money essentially poured into a stopgap. The cost of indecision has been more than financial. It's strained defense relations with allies. It's weakened Canadian leverage in the aerospace sector and it's created years of uncertainty for the Royal Canadian Air Force. While Canada spent 20 years in a holding pattern, other nations moved quickly. Norway, for instance, joined the F-35 program around the same time. It committed to buying 52 jets and received its first operational aircraft in 2015. As of 2023, Norway has fully integrated the F-35 into its air defense and NATO operations. Finland ran a rigorous but swift selection process called HX Fighter Program. It wrapped up in 2021, chose the F-35 and expects first deliveries by 2025. No major political battles, no scandals, just efficiency. Switzerland, after years of neutrality, still managed to make a faster decision, choosing the F-35 in 2021 with plans to deploy by 2027. Even Poland signed its F-35 deal in 2020 and received its first aircraft in 2024, beating Canada's timeline despite starting much later. So why did Canada's process take so long? 3 main reasons. First, defense spending in Canada is always politically contentious. Successive governments, both conservative and liberal, viewed fighter procurement as more of a campaign issue than a strategic priority. Second, public trust was undermined early. The 2012 Auditor General report spooked policymakers, even if the concerns were later addressed. And third, Canada's bidding process was built for gridlock. Years were lost to interim procurements, non-bidding studies, and delayed requests for proposals. At every turn, bureaucracy triumphed over urgency. Canada's indecision doesn't just hurt the military, it damages the country's ability to contribute meaningfully to collective defense. Canada is a member of NORAD and NATO, both of which rely on timely air defense coordination. Without a 5th-generation fighter in the air, Canada becomes the weak link in the chain. As a 2022 U.S. Congressional Research Service report noted, the slow pace of Canadian modernization may eventually impair joint operations with the United States. CRS 2022, North American Aerospace Defense Modernization. Meanwhile, adversaries like China and Russia are deploying stealth-capable aircraft, AI-assisted drones, and hypersonic missiles. The CF-18s, despite their durability, are not built to counter these new threats. There's another layer to this story: Canada's aerospace industry. By being slow to commit to the F-35, Canada risked missing out on larger industrial contracts. Over 110 Canadian companies have received work related to the F-35, worth $2.7 billion as of 2022. But that number could have been far higher had Canada committed earlier, like the UK, Norway, or Japan. Even now, it's uncertain whether Canadian firms will maintain their current contracts once full production ramps up, especially as Turkey, South Korea, and Finland push for greater industrial share. It's tempting to say that Canada's jet fighter nightmare is finally over. The country has selected the F-35, contracts are signed, deliveries are scheduled, and the Royal Canadian Air Force will eventually retire its Cold War fighters. But the journey here has exposed deep cracks between policy and strategy, between politics and procurement. Canada didn't just delay buying a fighter jet, it delayed a generation of defense readiness. And in modern warfare, time is the most expensive weapon of all. If you found this breakdown informative, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into global military spending, tech fails, and bureaucratic blunders. Drop a comment below. Should Canada have picked a different fighter? Or was the F-35 the right choice all along, just badly managed? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Red Tape Files.